Hello everyone. I hope that you had a nice holiday and now it's time to move on with our lessons. Last time we talked about a lesson, the medal part 3, and you could see our friends in a restaurant. They were ordering some food and they were also talking about the way to find Alan Smith. Today we are going to revise something that you already know, and those are uncountable and countable nouns as well as quantifiers. After that, we are going to learn how to order food in a restaurant. All the explanations about the nouns are here in your book, but I would like you to open not only your books to follow the lesson, but also your notebooks so that you can write down what we are doing today. So we are talking about countable and uncountable nouns and quantifiers. As you already know, all the nouns can be divided into countable and uncountable nouns. What is the difference? Countable nouns have plural, while uncountable nouns only have singular form. If I use one countable noun, for example, a book, I can write the plural of it. I only put the number in front of the noun and add s for plural, and then I know how many books I have. But when we are talking about uncountable nouns, I took milk, for example. We don't have the plural form. Milk is an uncountable noun and doesn't have the plural form. If I want to talk about some specific quantity of milk, then I use another countable noun. For example, 2 glasses of milk, and then I have the exact quantity. But what about if we are talking about some quantity that is not specified? Here we know there are 2 books, but what if I don't want to count them? Then we are using quantifiers. You know some of the quantifiers, so let's revise them. First of all, some and any. As you already know, some is used in affirmative sentences, both with countables and uncountable nouns. It can also be used in questions when you ask somebody, for example, would you like some chocolate? Any, on the other hand, is used only in interrogative and negative sentences, both with countables and uncountable nouns. It is a kind of a small quantity, but what if we are talking about large quantity? Then we can use a lot of, many, and much. But there is a difference. While we can use a lot of in all types of sentences, both with countables and uncountables, but you must remember that most often we use a lot of in affirmative sentences. We have many and much, which have a specific way of usage. You can use them only in interrogative and negative sentences, but many can be used only with countables, while much can be used with uncountable nouns. So that is the difference between them, although all of them have the same meaning. But you must pay attention to the type of the sentence and the type of a noun. And what if we are talking about small quantity? Then we use a few and a little. You can use them in all types of sentences, but a few is used with countables, while a little is used with uncountables. And one more thing, you can say few or a few, just like you can say little and a little. What is the difference? If I say few, for example, few books, or little milk, it shows small quantity, which is not enough. But if I say a few and a little, I also talk about small quantity, but the quantity that is enough. So, few and little are less than a few and a little. I hope that you remember that. Now let's do a little practice. In your books, you can see a picture with some food on the table and the words written in the box. Try to put U or C next to each of these nouns. U for uncountables and C for countable nouns, and then come back to check. This was not difficult, especially because all countable nouns were in plural, so they had S, and it was easy to find out which nouns are countables. Now let's move to quantifiers. In your books, in the exercise 5, you have one dialogue. In that dialogue, some quantifiers are missing. You can find them in this box. You can repeat them a couple of times in this dialogue. Do it in your books and then come back so that you can check. Is this the way you did it? I'm sure you did it in this way. What is it that you had to pay attention to? You had to pay attention to the form of the sentence, whether it is affirmative, whether it is a question, interrogative, or negative sentence. And you also had to pay attention to the nouns, whether they are countables or uncountables. I think you understand this and you remember this because we have already done that before. Now you are ready to go into a cafe or a restaurant and order food. In your books, you have one exercise, but before we listen to the dialogue and look at this exercise, let's see the most common expressions used by the waiter and the customer. You can write them down. Write down only those expressions. They're not the only ones. You can hear some others as well. But these that I have written here are most often used. Write them down. Now, when you have finished, we can listen to the dialogue which you have in your books. Listen to it.
Unit 3A, Exercise 6. Discover functions. A. Listen and practice the dialogue in pairs.
Excuse me, what's the soup of the day?
It's tomato.
Right, and what kind of pizzas are there?
Cheese and tomato or cheese, ham and sausage.
OK. I'd like a cheese and tomato pizza, please.
Right. What would you like to drink?
I think I'll have some fizzy water, please.
Fine. Anything else? Would you like a dessert?
What kind of ice cream have you got?
Strawberry or vanilla?
Could I have some chocolate cake, please?
Sure.
This was a very good example of how to order food in a restaurant. It can help you learn some of the expressions and practice this type of a dialogue. How are you going to do that? You have some words written in green. Replace them with some other words depending on what kind of food you want to order. You can do it a couple of times, and in that way you will remember the most often used expressions in the restaurant. And then you are ready to go anywhere around the world and order food. This is very important dialogue because you can stay hungry. If you don't learn those expressions, you won't be able to order food in a restaurant when you travel somewhere. Let's see now what is it that we have done today. First of all, we talked about countables and uncountable nouns and quantifiers. And then we learned how to order food in a restaurant. Let's see what you have for your homework. Last time you had to do the exercise 1 and 2, and now you have to practice what we have done today. In the exercise 3, read the dialogue carefully. Listen, don't listen, you can't listen to it, you can just read it. Pay attention to the meaning of the sentences here, because you will need that later. While you are reading, circle all the nouns that are uncountable and underline the nouns that are countable. When you finish that, look at the sentences here and write down whether they are true or false, or maybe they didn't talk about that. On the next page, you have another exercise with quantifiers, so you have to circle one of the two which are given in this text. After that, you have to write questions about the exercise 5 and answer them. Now let's move to ordering food. Here you have some expressions which you need to put in the sentences below. And then the dialogue, which is not written in the correct order. You have the first sentence, and your task is to put the other sentences in the right order so that you make a dialogue in a restaurant. And the last thing that you have to do is to make a dialogue of your own. You are ordering lunch, so try to use everything that you have learned today and write the dialogue. If you don't have enough place here, you can do it in your notebooks. That would be all for today. Goodbye.